Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, share your insights in the comments, and subscribe to keep up with our newest narratives. Never did I imagine I would be caught in such a predicament, grappling with my devotion to my husband while confronting the disquieting truth of recent events. Yet, existence often leads you into unforeseen moments, instances that compel you to reevaluate all that you believed regarding trust, respect, and your own identity. It began on a crisp autumn evening. Mark, my husband, had extended an invitation to a handful of his colleagues for an evening meal. It was quite typical. Mark had been with his company for almost 2 decades, and throughout that time, I had gotten to know a number of his colleagues quite well. A few had turned into friends, individuals with whom I would share holiday cards and engage in light conversation at company gatherings. However, Nathan stood apart from the rest. Nathan had recently embarked on his journey with the company, having come on board roughly a year prior. He was in his early 40s, younger than Mark, exuding confidence and an undeniable charm that drew people to him effortlessly. He possessed a unique talent for transforming each dialogue into a shared understanding, where every praise resonated like a whispered secret intended solely for you. I hadn't really considered it until that evening. A lovely dinner was on the agenda. The aroma of rosemary and garlic wafted through the house, emanating from the roasted chicken in the oven, while the soft flicker of candlelight cast a warm, inviting glow throughout the space. Mark thrived in the moment, sharing laughter and engaging in lively conversations with his colleagues, while I embraced the role of the attentive host, ensuring drinks were topped off and everyone felt at ease. Nathan showed up slightly after the rest, clutching a bottle of wine and wearing his trademark confident smile. "Hope I'm not too late to the gathering," he remarked, offering me the wine as his fingers lingered over mine just a moment longer than needed. I brushed aside the fleeting unease, attributing it to my own fanciful thoughts. The night unfolded, and with each sip, the discussions became more animated. Mark was engrossed in a dialogue with his boss regarding an upcoming project, while I found myself ensnared in a conversation with Nathan. He was as charming as ever, yet tonight, there was an undercurrent to his words, something weightier, more incisive. "You know, Emily," he said, his voice flowing effortlessly. "It's clear that Mark has found himself in a fortunate position." I chuckled softly, dismissing the remark with grace. I like to believe that fortune smiles upon me as well. Nathan leaned in a bit, his eyes unwavering. "If I were in his shoes, I can't imagine ever being apart from you." There it was, that unmistakable change in atmosphere. My stomach nodded. I suggested with a casual tone, aiming to shift the direction of our discussion. Yet Nathan stood his ground. As the evening progressed, his remarks grew more audacious, subtle, and seemingly innocuous comments that, when assembled, revealed a narrative of something much more deliberate. A lingering touch on my arm, a glance that weighed heavily, a soft remark whispered near my ear, sending an unwelcome shiver down my spine. I reassured myself that I was being overly dramatic. Perhaps it was the wine. Perhaps it was merely Nathan's inherent allure. As the evening drew to a close and Mark escorted the final guests out, Nathan lingered for a brief moment. He remarked how pleasant it was to share the evening with you. His voice had dropped an octave, and his expression was a mystery. I look forward to the opportunity to do this again. Perhaps. Only the two of us, at some point. My breath was taken away. For a brief instant, I questioned whether I had truly understood his words. Yet, the gaze in his eyes, paired with the subtle smirk on his lips, revealed that I indeed had. Just as I was about to speak, Mark came back, giving Nathan a hearty clap on the back. "Happy to see you here, my friend. Stay safe on the road." Nathan offered a fleeting smile, his gaze meeting mine for just a moment before he turned and exited through the door. I remained motionless, my heart racing wildly. Did that truly just occur? I hardly took note of Mark's voice as he secured the place for the evening, his tone casual and oblivious. That seemed to go quite smoothly, wouldn't you agree? It appeared that all were enjoying themselves. I managed to put on a smile. Indeed, it was an enjoyable evening. As I lay in bed that night, gazing at the ceiling, an unsettling sense of change lingered in the air. A shift had occurred. And deep within, I sensed that this was far from finished. The following morning, I awoke feeling an unusual weight pressing down on my chest. The house lay in stillness, save for the faint murmur of Mark in the kitchen, likely preparing his customary Saturday morning brew. I reassured myself that I was overanalyzing the situation, that Nathan was merely being his typical, excessively charming self, and I had interpreted his words too deeply. Yet, despite my efforts to push it away, the echo of his voice, the gaze that pierced through me, the gentle touch of his fingers against mine, it all clung to me like an unshakable shadow. I set my thoughts aside and rose from the bed, enveloping myself in my robe before making my way downstairs. "Morning, Han," Mark said with a grin, offering me a steaming mug of coffee. "Did you sleep well?" Indeed, I wasn't truthful, savoring a sip. He overlooked my pause, seamlessly transitioning to his next idea. "Oh, just so you know, Nathan sent me a text this morning. He mentioned that he thoroughly enjoyed himself last night and is eager to meet up again in the near future." I almost sputtered my coffee everywhere. Mark appeared oblivious. I suggested that we arrange a double date. Perhaps we could enjoy a meal at that new steakhouse in the heart of downtown. I paused. Every fiber of my being urged me to decline, to fabricate an excuse, any justification to steer clear of sharing the same space with Nathan once more. What was I meant to do? Please let my husband know that his colleague has overstepped boundaries. I'm uncertain about their intentions, but their actions have made me feel uneasy. I lacked any evidence, merely an instinct. Instead, I compelled a smile to appear. "That sounds delightful." Mark smiled broadly. "Excellent, I'll take care of it." In the week that followed, I endeavored to put the entire matter out of my mind. I immersed myself in a whirlwind of activities, tackling errands, reconnecting with old friends, and engaging in anything that would prevent my thoughts from wandering back to Nathan. Suddenly, a text appeared, seemingly from thin air. "Nathan. Hello, Emily. I trust your day is going wonderfully. I can't shake off the thoughts from our conversation the other night." My stomach churned. I gazed at the message, my fingers poised above the keyboard. I might have overlooked it, ought to have overlooked it. Yet a part of me felt the need to clarify that whatever he believed was unfolding, it truly wasn't. "Is it me?" "Hello, Nathan. It seems there may have been a misunderstanding on your part. I am in a happy marriage, and I would be grateful if we could maintain a professional demeanor." I pressed send and exhaled, wishing that would conclude the matter. Moments later, my phone vibrated once more. "Nathan." "Absolutely, Emily. I appreciate that. Merely stating a fact." Had circumstances taken another turn? I tightened my jaw. He continued on without pause. I chose not to reply. 2 days later, the double date took place. I thought about backing out, crafting a reason, but I didn't want to arouse any doubts. I decided to go, donning a straightforward navy dress and putting forth my best effort to appear at ease. Nathan and his wife, Rachel, were comfortably settled in their seats by the time we got there. Rachel exuded warmth, her gentle voice and kind demeanor creating an aura of tenderness. She gazed at her husband with an adoration that suggested he was her entire universe. It caused a tumult in my stomach. Nathan glided through the room with his usual charm, weaving humor into the dialogue, ensuring the atmosphere remained vibrant, as if the past were nothing but a distant memory. Yet, I noticed it, the fleeting looks exchanged when the room was oblivious, the subtle touch of his knee against mine beneath the table, the slight lean of his body as he passed me the wine bottle, just a fraction too intimate. I felt confined. At a certain moment during the evening, as Rachel and Mark engaged in conversation, Nathan leaned in and whispered softly, just for my ears, that I appeared even more beautiful when I was nervous. I stood still. My heart raced in my ears, my body tightening as I glanced at him. He wore a smirk, so understated it was almost imperceptible. I faced a pair of options. Let it go, act as if it never occurred like I did previously, or put an end to this immediately. I inhaled deeply, then raised my voice so that Mark and Rachel could hear me. "Nathan, I believe it's not suitable for you to address me in that manner." A hush enveloped the table. Mark's head jerked upward. Rachel stared, her mind swirling in a haze of uncertainty. And Nathan, he simply gazed at me, his smirk fading as the weight of my actions sank in. Mark scowled. "What is happening?" Nathan emitted a faint, strained chuckle. "It was merely a jest." "It certainly didn't feel like one," I replied with calm assurance. Rachel glanced back and forth, her brow knitting in concern. "Nathan?" He swiftly shook his head, donning a grin. "It was merely a miscommunication. Let's keep this comfortable." Yet, the situation was undeniably uncomfortable, and I felt indifferent. Mark gazed at me, a mix of confusion and concern in his eyes. "Emily, how are you holding up?" As our gazes locked, I finally revealed the reality that had long been hidden from him. I confessed that I no longer felt the desire to remain here. Mark refrained from posing any further inquiries. He merely nodded and rose to his feet. "Let us proceed." Nathan parted his lips, seemingly ready to speak, but I chose not to linger for his words. I picked up my purse, shot Rachel a remorseful glance, and exited the restaurant with my husband beside me. I was uncertain about what was to come next. However, it was clear that this was far from finished. The journey back in the car was filled with silence. Mark kept stealing glances in my direction, as if anticipating my words, yet I remained fixated on the view outside, my mind a chaotic web of thoughts. At last, as we rolled into the driveway, he began to speak. "Emily, can you explain what transpired just now?" I let out a breath, my fingers tightening around my purse. "Help me express this in a way that feels right. Challenge me." His voice carried a softness, yet underneath it lay a hint of something deeper, perhaps concern, or even a flicker of anger. I faced him, selecting my words with precision. "Nathan has been causing me discomfort." Mark's brow knitted in concentration. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I took a deep breath. That evening following dinner at our home, he was overly comfortable. The manner in which he brushed my hand, the intensity of his gaze upon me. I dismissed it as inconsequential. A few days later, he reached out, expressing that he couldn't shake off the thoughts of our conversation. Mark gripped the steering wheel with increasing intensity. And this evening, I pressed on. He made an inappropriate remark towards me. I attempted to manage it by myself, but I came to understand that remaining silent would only allow it to continue indefinitely. Mark's jaw tightened, his knuckles paling in intensity. "Emily, why didn't you share this with me earlier?" I confessed, uncertain if it was merely a figment of my imagination. "Since he's your colleague, I aim to avoid causing any issues for you in the workplace." Mark shook his head, his eyes shadowed with an emotion I seldom witnessed. Rage. "You are my partner for life. Your needs are the priority. Without fail." His words constricted my chest, yet for the first time that night, I sensed a newfound ability to breathe. Yet, this was far from finished. The following morning, I awoke to discover Mark already in the kitchen, a foam cup in his hand, his expression taut. "What seems to be the issue?" I inquired. He exhaled gently. "Nathan sent me a message. He's attempting to play it cool, expressing a desire that the events of last night didn't stir up any unwanted tension." I let out a derisive laugh. "Excessive theatrics. Incredible." Mark cast his gaze in my direction. "I wish for you to be free from this burden once and for all." I planned to have a direct conversation with him at work. I paused. "Do you really think so?" "He crossed a line," Mark stated with conviction. "On multiple occasions. This must be stated unequivocally, this is unacceptable." There was a certain quality in his voice that indicated he would pursue this matter further, and to be honest, I felt a sense of relief. That afternoon, while Mark was at work, I attempted to carry on with my day as normal, yet an unsettling sensation lingered within me, a conviction that Nathan wouldn't simply fade away from this situation without a fight. Indeed, I was correct. At approximately 3 p.m., my phone vibrated. "Nathan, it seems we may have started on the wrong note. May we have a conversation? Only the two of us." A shiver coursed through me. No response. Moments later, another message arrived. "Nathan, let's go, Emily. Let's approach this with maturity." I clenched my jaw, my heart racing. The nerve. I had blocked his number. After that, I reached out to Mark. As Mark stepped through the door that evening, he appeared weary yet resolute. "What transpired?" I inquired as he placed his briefcase on the ground. He swept his fingers through his hair. I faced him head-on. I felt a surge of tension. Mark let out a sharp breath. Initially, he attempted to play it off as a joke, suggesting that I was being overly dramatic. However, I expressed it clearly. "He must not reach out to you again. Always. And if he even glances at you inappropriately, I'll ensure our supervisor is fully aware of his true character." I nibbled on my lip. And he simply came to terms with it. Mark's expression grew somber. Initially, no. He became quite protective. "You called me absurd, claiming that you were taking control of the situation. Yet, I expressed my unwavering trust in you to him." And that concluded the conversation. A lump formed in my throat. "Did you actually go through with that?" "Indeed, I did," he replied gently. "Emily, I will forever be your unwavering support. Facing something like this alone is never the way to go." An overwhelming wave of feeling washed over me. For days, I had been ensnared in a web of uncertainty, grappling with how to navigate the situation, anxious about the impact it would have on Mark. Yet here I was, in our home, listening to the steadfast conviction in his voice, and I experienced a sensation that had eluded me for quite some time. Secure. I embraced him, pulling him close. "Thanks a lot." His lips gently brushed the crown of my head. "Your gratitude is unnecessary when it comes to safeguarding you." For the first time in days, I found myself genuinely believing him. Yet, beneath the surface, an unsettling sensation lingered. Nathan was not one to easily concede defeat. I found myself questioning whether this was truly the end. I wished to think it had come to an end. Mark's warning was sufficient to ensure Nathan backed off for good. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware of the truth. Indeed, I was correct. 2 days later, I found myself in the grocery store, maneuvering my cart through the produce aisle, when I sensed it. An existence. A shadow hovering just a tad too near. I pivoted, and a wave of unease washed over me. "Nathan." He lingered a few feet away, nonchalantly examining a line of apples as if he were merely passing through. Yet, I was aware of the truth. The shop was situated on the opposite side of town from his workplace. There was no justification for his presence in this place. My heart raced. I contemplated walking away, yet a part of me held firm, unwilling to reveal my apprehension to him. I squared my shoulders, reached for a bag of oranges, and pretended he was invisible. However, he clearly missed the subtle suggestion. "Emily," he said with a smooth cadence. "What a pleasant surprise to encounter you here." I chose not to reply. He moved in closer. "There's no reason to be disrespectful. It seems there may have been a slight miscommunication between us." I pivoted to confront him, my heart racing. "There is no confusion, Nathan. You have overstepped your boundaries, and it's best for you to keep your distance from me." His smile wavered. "Let's get moving. There's no need for theatrics." "Is it intense?" My voice was steady and resolute. "Reaching out to me after I blocked your number? Arriving at this place? That's quite unusual, Nathan." His expression shifted, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of the truth beneath the facade. "You know," he said, tilting his head. "Mark is quite fortunate. Exercise caution, Emily. A woman of your caliber certainly draws the eye. Some of it isn't good." A shiver coursed through me. This was more than mere persistence. This served as a cautionary note. I locked eyes with him, determined not to reveal the tremor of fear within me. Are you implying something menacing towards me? Nathan raised his hands, that self-satisfied grin reappearing. Not in the slightest. Simply noting a point of interest. I pivoted and stepped away, my hands trembling. I left my cart behind and hurried to my car, securing the doors as soon as I settled in. Before I even registered the action, my phone was already cradled in my hand. I reached out to Mark. Mark returned home sooner than he typically did that evening. He was furious. Did he follow you? He inquired, his tone laced with a simmering intensity. Indeed, I mentioned, and he wasn't merely acting unsettling, Mark. He was attempting to instill fear in me. Mark let out a sharp breath, moving restlessly around the kitchen. That's all there is to it. I've had enough of being polite. I gulped. What will you be doing? He locked his gaze with mine. I am heading to see our boss. And if that doesn't yield results, I'll be taking it to HR. Nathan is not afforded this opportunity. Not for you. To no one. For the first time since this began, I sensed a change within me. A burden eased, for I found companionship in this journey. Nathan attempted to diminish my strength, yet I remained unyielding. Not any longer. The following day, Mark submitted an official grievance to HR. Nathan must have come to the conclusion that he had overstepped, for by the week's end, he had stepped down from the company. Rumors circulated quickly, hinting at personal motivations and fresh prospects on the horizon. Yet, Mark and I were aware of the reality. He had vanished. At long last, after what felt like an eternity, I found the freedom to breathe once more. That weekend, Mark and I found ourselves on the back porch, captivated by the fading light of the sunset. Are you all right? He inquired, his fingers intertwining with mine. I gave a slight nod. Indeed, I believe I've reached that point at last. Mark let out a breath, his thumb gliding over my hand. I ought to have recognized it earlier. I ought to have. I interrupted him. No, he was the issue, not you. Your unwavering support was there when I needed it the most. That is what truly counts. He drew me nearer, placing a gentle kiss on my forehead. Without fail. I smiled, leaning my head against his shoulder. This entire experience had been a harrowing journey, yet it revealed something significant about my character, about Mark, and the resilience we shared. Nathan had attempted to rattle me. Ultimately, he merely highlighted the true strength that resided within me.